Hello, friends, and welcome to our Embodied Spirituality Zoom call. Those of you who are present here with us, it's good to be with you today. We're continuing, as we go through Lent, we are continuing to go through how different ways of engaging our spiritual lives. And today we are going to engage in two practices that I do with the breathing space group and service that I do once a week. And I hope that you'll engage with these and have a chance to take these in, and that these will be beneficial and helpful for you as you engage your spiritual life. Now, before we go any further, one of the things we just need to clarify and remind ourselves is that what our goal is in this is practices that help us engage both our body, our mind, and our soul. So the idea is that our whole being, with our whole being, we will work to make ourselves available to the Spirit of God and to the spirit of those who are around us. And so today we're going to engage in two different forms of prayer. One is a written prayer / journaling form, and then we will engage in a prayer of intercession for others, although this has a bit of a twist on it because we're going to be doing this with the intention of not necessarily praying for those whom we know, but those who are who we often and sometimes think of as other than us. And the first thing that I just want to remind us is that as we engage in this, we are called to do these kinds of practices in intentional ways. We have to actually try, we have to actually engage with our lives in ways that are not haphazard, because, well, I don't know about you, but if I tell myself that there's something I need to do, but that I can do it later, I won't say 9 times out of 10, maybe 3 times out of 10, it ends up that later just keeps getting pushed back again and again and again. And that's not what spiritual practices are intended to be. It is meant to be a discipline. Discipline here doesn't mean, you've been bad. It's discipline as I will take this on, I will make it a part of who I am. It is how I will exist in the world, and I will do so with regularity because there is an intentionality and a recognition that the work that we are doing, the prayer life that we are trying to develop, the way of engaging with those around us and within ourselves is important for us to be whole human beings. And so that doesn't happen by accident. It only happens by intentionally engaging in these kinds of practices. So the first practice that I want us to consider, and that I'm going to ask you all to do, is a practice of journaling. I know oftentimes when we think about prayer, we think about heartfelt prayers and that real prayer, that there's a narrative out there that real prayer just comes from inside you. It springs forth, and that is what true prayer is. And I do not discount that kind of prayer is meaningful. Interesting things, beautiful things can come up, unexpected things can come up from within ourselves when we engage in that kind of prayer. However, I would like for us to practice today, I'm going to encourage you to spend some time, of the idea of spending time with words and writing them down. And the reason for this is because, well, I don't know about you, but oftentimes my mind goes much faster than my mouth does. And sometimes I skip over things. The good and helpful and prayerful use of journaling and of writing prayers down longhand, and that's one of the things. I would not recommend typing. I would recommend doing it longhand, is that it forces us to slow down. There's something about the act of writing words on page that make them more solid, that help us connect what we have written to what we are writing. It can encourage us to be more poetic, more more engaged at perhaps a deeper or more thoughtful level. And so one of the things that I'm going to ask you, one of the things that I'll ask you to do is that if you want to go ahead and pause this right now, go grab a piece of paper or a journaling book that you might use, and spend set a timer of maybe 10 minutes and just write out a prayer. And it doesn't have to be just the concerns that are weighing on your heart. It could be a prayer of praise to God. It could be a prayer of lament and longing. Whatever it is that is on your heart, but try to be intentional about taking that time and devoting yourselves uh, to what you are saying with God. And then once you have crafted it, I encourage you to take that and actually pray that on your own at a later point in time. So that is one practice that I'm going to ask you to engage in. Now, the other practice that I'm encouraging you to engage in is the practice of, this is a practice that we use. You see that I have a map there with a bunch of hearts, and if anybody wishes a collection of the hearts that I'm using, simply come to me. I'd be happy to print some off for you. The reason why these hearts are important is because oftentimes when we engage in prayer, we can become myopic. We only pray for the things that we are aware of. We only pray for those whom we know. We pray for those who we care about. And that, of course, is not a bad thing, but it is a narrow thing. And one of the things that Jesus tells us is, one of the most challenging things that Jesus tells us is that we are called to pray for our enemies. And the other thing that we know is that we live in a complex and multifaceted world, and there are concerns everywhere. And one of the reasons why I like the use of these hearts is that these hearts have groups of people on it. Sometimes you'll see things like you'll draw a heart and it will have something like policemen and women. Sometimes it will have those who are being trafficked, or sex workers. It can be there's one in there that says, pray for faith leaders of all religions. What we are called to do as God's people is to engage in this kind of prayer, but not, we aren't called to pray for people in such a way that they suddenly become like us. So like Jesus' commandment for us to pray for our enemies is not the prayer where we ask God to smite them. No. What we are called to do as we pray for our enemies is for God to bless them. Because what we know is that when God blesses even our enemies, what that means is a change of heart. It changes who they are toward God. Doesn't necessarily mean it will be toward me. But we are called as human beings by God to pray for all of the world. And so I want you to take some time and think about this. And I drew a heart for you at the beginning, just before I began recording. And the heart for you to pray on, and this is backwards for you, so I will read it to you, is people beginning a new chapter in life. So part of the practice of praying for someone who is beginning, people who are beginning a new chapter in life, is to ask God to um, to be with these people. Uh, and what that does is that it broadens out our scope, because fundamentally, every single person in the world is made in the image of God. And practices like this can help us broaden our viewpoint so that we are able to pray for those who we might not think of otherwise. So, friends, and what I would ask you to do is simply, once you have uh, prayed for this person, and by that I mean, spend a few minutes simply in thoughtful prayer, asking for God's light to shine down on them, for them to be well, asking for healing, whatever healing that they might need to happen. For those who are beginning a new chapter in their life, asking for courage or compassion or resiliency in the midst of transition. So I ask you to try over the next couple days to try one of these, and if you need more hearts, feel free to reach out to me. Either in the comments or email me or give me a call. Uh, it is good. So at this point, I'm going to let you go and engage in your spiritual practices. I pray and hope that this continues to be a meaningful and holy Lent for you.